So you say what I'm hearing is you can do the flooring with the framing the house as is without having like total kind of destruction, like bring the whole house down and then start ground zero.
Yes. Yeah, if you approach it correctly, if you have a great contractor, you can figure this out. You can rebuild. You have to take out all the furniture, and then you take out the flooring, and you put in new floor truss, new joists. And in this case, we used pump jacks to make sure that we could level things correctly underneath. And so the framing is sitting on piers, and then there's areas where they're softer that you could put in screw jacks, and it's just all an approach that you need someone that really knows what they're doing to be a owner's rep. So we do a lot of owner's rep from here to California and back, where we monitor construction and opine on what needs to be done and watch it from the perspective of if I own the house.
We are joined by a seasoned real estate veteran who has been in trenches on the rooftops over 4 decades. Greg Trotter has spent the last 40 years working across construction, development, and consulting, helping shape properties all across North America. He has seen it all from smooth turnarounds to total renovation disaster and brings a wealth of hard-earned wisdom to the table. In this episode, Greg shares the red flags to watch for before starting a project, how to protect your wealth from getting wiped out by a bad contractor or blown up budget, and what to do if you're already knee-deep in a renovation that has gone wrong. So we're going to learn how to protect our wealth from the sneaky pitfalls that derail even the best laid plans. Today, our topic is renovation nightmares, how to avoid them, and what to do if you're already stuck in one. I'm so excited to have you here because you bring decades of real estate world wisdom that so many of us need, especially when it comes to protecting your wealth from renovation chaos. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, honored to be here, and I appreciate it. This is what I do every day. And so it's like, I'll just flow with it. It happens all the time that we, first of all, I'm a due diligence consultant for commercial real estate, but I've been pulled into a lot of renovation issues and problems with custom homes and so forth over the years. So I've done renovation and as far as construction and ground up, and we look at least one multifamily project a week, if not more. And we get calls from desperate people that are in the midst of a renovation disaster or situation. And I'm so sorry about that, because to your question, what the heck, how did I end up here? And of course, I get to analyze that. And my job is to prevent an investor from really running into a situation where it just, there's risks there that were not cited. There was the schedule was wrong. It's the wrong contractor. They're doing a terrible job, and on and on and on. So that's what I live for, is those phone calls and fixing the problems if they are really frustrated with their building and it leaks inside it settles. A lot of issues happen with the building over time that we love to have the call and see if we can figure it out. So with that, I would say to avoid risks, first of all, is let's say you're going to buy a custom home, but you're going to renovate it extensively. Happens all the time. Is the thing is, before you buy this home, you need to get a really and thorough inspection. Let's find out what's going on with the windows, with the roof, with what's going on. Because if you're rehabbing an existing building or house, that's there, that's in the bones. Well, how are the bones doing? How are the windows doing? How's the AC doing? How's the roof doing? You need exact, clear, concise information with someone as your bodyguard when you're investing in a home that's going to be renovated. And
All right.
so what happens is I get there and
Mhm.
everybody's pulled their hair out and they didn't know this, they didn't know that. They didn't know there was some latent problems with the building itself when they started working on it. And one thing about it, and I kind of understand that you want to renovate an existing building, but if you look at the time it takes sometimes to do the renovation, you could have bulldozed the building and started again. And I mean, I've been on some properties for 7, 8 years of continuously consulting and checking back to see how things are going after they've moved back in and things are running. It's kind of frustrating because it can really hurt your self-esteem. It can hurt the family situation. It can hurt the budget significantly. And so I think that number one is a really good due diligence inspection. We call it an equity level, where maybe this report isn't going to go anywhere but into your file and to your pocket. But what is going on for starters? Because the contractor has their scope, but they're going to say, well, we didn't know about that, or we didn't budget for that. We get a lot of that. And so that's an extra. It's a pre-existing condition. Remember that? That's a change order. Didn't know it was there, so we have to charge extra for this and for that. So second
Let's
thing,
take it down. I'm going to stop you for a second over there.
sure,
Let's break it down. Let's take smaller steps to
yep,
have that digestible information. So let's start with this first question. Can you take us back to one of your worst renovation nightmares that you have seen or been part of? And what exactly went wrong? And what was the wealth lesson buried in that chaos? So let's set the ground with that question, and then we can dig deep, take small steps to understand everything, how that.
sure. Here's one beautiful home at the end of a cul-de-sac on a lake with a dock, high water table, obviously, and it has a crawl space. So the framing is block, dirt floor, and then a beautiful home on top of it. You can imagine, just fantastic. So this doctor and doctor couple are buying the home. They bought the home, and in they go. And there's something wrong with the floor, with the floor system. There's something that makes them concerned. And it turns out they had the inspection. They had what we call a WDO inspection, which is looking for termites and any wood decay, as well as a home inspection. Report comes back to them and says everything's fine, everything's clear, all set to go. So good, we're set to go, and we move in. And then within a year or less, they contact a construction attorney because there's problems with the home's floor system, the structure, and they don't know what to do. So eventually the attorney gets me involved, and I go into the crawl space through a really large crawl space. So I have plenty of room to get around. And so does my client. She's about this tall, and she gets in there, and we look around, and the total floor system, wood floor system, is totally rotted out. The framing, the decking, and so forth. So that's pretty much a disaster. How much of a disaster is we basically have to rebuild the home. We have to tell them to move out, and we rebuild the whole floor system, and then you can move back in. So you can imagine, I mean, it's literally like moving out, finding a place to live, and then doing the whole rebuild of this property as far as the floor. The walls are fine, the roof is fine, just take out the floor and rebuild it. I was under that building just this week. They are smart, and what you do is you recheck and make sure that things are going well years later. So we check the how the framing is doing, how the crawl space is doing, is there any water issues, because this is Florida, and make sure that everything is operating perfectly. We always come up with a little something here or there as far as, say, corrosion or something that needs to be addressed. But overall, the good news is that it's a beautiful home, wonderful to live in, wonderful to be in, and it's 7 or 8 years later, and it can be done. But it's extensive to have to take people to move their furniture out and rebuild the floor system. That's pretty much a disaster.
So you say what I'm hearing is you can do the flooring with the framing the house as is without having like total kind of destruction, like bring the whole house down and then start ground zero?
Yes. Yeah, if you approach it correctly, if you have a great contractor, you can figure this out. You can rebuild, you have to take out all the furniture, and then you take out the flooring and you put in new floor truss, new joists. And in this case, we used pump jacks to make sure that we could level things correctly underneath. And so the framing is sitting on piers. And then there's areas where they're softer that you can put in screw jacks. And it's just all an approach that you need someone that really knows what they're doing to be a owner's rep. So we do a lot of owner's rep from here to California and back, where we monitor construction and opine on what needs to be done and watch it from the perspective of, if I own the house, if I own that building, what should I worry about? So we monitor for a lot of clients to make sure that the construction is done well and come up with ideas that haven't been thought of. Yeah, it's really an honor because you love these families or these people. They call me their bodyguard, and I'm so honored to take that responsibility. So it could be millions and millions of dollars, or it could be just a small.
Depending upon the project, yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question, since we are in the commercial real estate and mainly on the multifamily side. So, and you do a lot of commercial too, and
Yeah.
then you got over 40 years of experience in construction and development. In your eyes, what are some of the early warning signs that the project might go sideways before the nightmare even began?
Yeah, great. Well, starting the foundation, you walk around, is there a foundation? I worked on a project, I was expert witness in a case where you couldn't see the foundation. It was reported by some other company that it was a slab on grade foundation, and it turns out it was crawl spaces. And the crawl spaces weren't vented, so the buildings are starting to collapse. It's very sad, but so you got to start with foundation, concrete, and then you go from there. You look for water intrusion from windows, doors, and you go in the ugly spaces, right? So the crawl space, the attic space, and you're looking for everything to be level and plumb, and you're looking for moisture intrusion, you're looking for mold, you're looking for something that gives you a sense that there's cracks in the walls. All these are indicators that something that should be followed up on, and they're there. Now, it just sort of takes a trained eye, a trained nose, a trained hand to make sure that I'm looking at things right and that you can pick up something that way. So you use all 5 senses and you get in there and analyze the various systems in a building. There's a roof system, there's electrical system, HVAC system, on and on, all these systems, structure system. And you take a look at each system. There's 16 of them, 16 systems in any construction, and you analyze it by system and see, and there will be telltale signs of this is old, this is not working, it's not cooling properly, the differential between the air going through the air conditioner and back, on and on and on. And you're almost like a robot. Okay, I'm looking at a window and I know what I should be looking for so that I see if the window is leaking or not. It's just the detective approach. So
So
that's what I do.
maybe you wanted to have some contract with you to check it out. I know a lot of investors chase upside in value add deals without fully grasping the risk, what is involved. So what would you advise those investors, what advice they can use for evaluating a renovation project before they're committing their money, time, or sanity? Because it's a lot more involved just inspecting the walls or the sewer system or whatever, there's lines to be scoped, because if you're looking into properties, those are like C class or D class, like truly renovation projects, or you can say value add projects. So what is your take on that? If you can walk us through that.
Sure. If you're contemplating a renovation, you need a really good basis. And then you've got let's say you've selected a contractor or selected a scope of work. You just get multiple inputs, verify that who you're working with, and go from there. It's generally, number one, renovations take longer and cost more than you expected. So I always say there should be a contingency for unforeseen conditions that you run into as you build. And there should be an owner's contingency in the budget for you change your mind. You want special thermostats. You want this. You want special different flooring and so forth of thing. And so you should go into it realistically and not be too tight. And you should have enough capital sources to be able, if things go awry, the schedule is too short and the actual building schedule takes longer, be prepared for those things. You have to be kind of like, go with the flow. It's going to be tough. It's going to be challenging. There's going to be times when you're going crazy, but be prepared budget wise, schedule wise, and you have the right team to work with. And you need to do your due diligence on that.
So let's talk about the contractors here, since we're talking about, all this budgeting and the timelines and all that, because that's where I think the things often goes out actually. What are some of the practical ways that people can protect themselves before the renovation starts? I'm talking about like contracts, communication, even the payment structure. So you ensure that you're secured, basically, that you're gonna have a little bit win in the situation, not necessarily you're looking to go south.
Right. Well, figure you're going to get billed on a monthly basis from the contractor, and you should have a third party verify that the draw is correctly, is percentage in place. As we do this all the time. And so that's the key, is to have someone protect you, someone as an owner's rep. And then you need lien waivers along with the payments. And it's a process of what we call bank draws, right? And the critical thing is don't let them get ahead of you. You want the contractors to be open to discussing some issues you would have, and you want someone that's working with you and not against you. And so the key thing on what we're doing right now with a couple projects is to redefining not only what the contract looks like, but the scope of work. There's this thing called white space, and white space means we really don't well define something. So I was going over a $16 million budget yesterday, and there's these unexplained items. They aren't drawn out really well for the owner as to, well, we're going to have a $200,000 value engineering deduct on the contract. And I said, so what are we taking out? I mean, what are we doing with this? You've got to challenge and know exactly that there's no white space in your understanding of the project versus the contractor, because that's where you get in trouble, right? Is it isn't fully developed, and you want to be sure you have what your expectations are. And that's hard to do.
So you want to keep your communication channels open,
Yeah.
and be on top of that all the time, whether it's a smaller project or bigger project. So let's say if someone is already underway in a project, and then it's like already stuck in a bad situation, maybe over budget, maybe behind schedule, or stuck with a difficult crew to work with, what steps should they take right now to stabilize the mess and stop this, I would call it, financial bleeding at this point?
I get those calls, right? It's so hard to take the call, and you get it. And it's like, we're just dying out here with this contractor, and we're having like water coming in because we just had a storm here in Florida, and they're just not proactive. You need someone to intercede on your behalf and be strong, and they need to protect you. They need to be for the family, for the house, for the building, and be the advocate for the building, right? So it can be, and so far I not really have ever gotten in a fist fight with a contractor or anything like that, but I'm there to help the process along to get to the finish line. But boy, can they be a mess, right? I mean, they're going this way and this direction. Oh, and we just threw some building paper on the roof, but the tiles aren't coming for a month and a half or 2 months. Or you just need an advocate, and you should start looking for that advocate before than in the middle. And you need well-defined schedules. You need well-defined budget, and those are things that should be worked out right away. But if you have to have someone helicopter in, look for someone like myself.
Oh, wow. That's a good thing to say. Look for somebody like you. But at the same time, I need to ask you, somebody's new, let's say if it's their first multifamily project, and it's a value add deal. So what are the key things that they should be looking for from the due diligence perspective, when they do a walkthrough? There might be certain things that could be missed or hit or miss kind of thing, So what would you advise them?
Okay, so let's say we have a C level multifamily project and we're going to take it to a B. Well, what is that like? That's all cosmetic stuff, right? I'm that. So when I do my due diligence for that C property, you know what I'm not doing? I don't care about the cosmetics. I don't care if you're going to move a wall or put a this or a that. I'm all about still the main things is I'm looking for those things that are going to get them in trouble in the midst of their purchase and then their renovation process. So I look for problems with the roof, the siding, the windows, the doors, the grading, the paving. I'm kind of the ugly side of the formula. And you know what's the terrible thing about this? My stuff doesn't improve the rental rate, right? My stuff, unfortunately, isn't something to get excited about because I'm not with a painter's brush. I'm with, hey guys, hey gals, what do we have to do this? And you know who hires me? Is investor groups that do very, very well, very successful, leaders in the industry, and they really want to know. They want to know because they know they can fall in love with the project and they can see a new vision paying $960,000 to renovate a clubhouse or something. And I don't see that. I don't get that. But what they really know, they don't know, is what's going on with my aspects of foundations and water intrusion and grading and so forth. And so you need someone that's taking right behind your back here and worries about the non-cosmetic issues. And does this make sense?
Non-cosmetic issues. So those are the real problems that you can see
Right.
building, right? So
Yeah.
I know there's a lot more involved, like, when you're scoping the lines, if you see something over there. So I think that's what all decides whether you wanted to take this project down or no, It might look good, okay, so value add deal, but then the thing is when you see how much it's gonna cost to renovate it, bring it back up, and if you're gonna make enough money that you can justify the returns for your investors, that's what makes it a good deal or bad deal, So let's flip the question here a little bit and ask you, tell us about the renovation, what went incredibly well and actually helped someone build serious wealth, what made it work smoothly. Let's talk about that, a good project this time.
A good project this time. Okay. So you have the investors and they're money conscious, and then they have a sponsor. You have a sponsor who has their local, for example, and they are going to be their local representative for the investment. Well, a lot of times the investing group has a lot of flair and sense of they've done this a number of times, so they know what they want. And they just want a really good sponsor locally to carry through and do the transition from the C to the B. And so the key thing there is just to be sure you have everyone who's caring and talking. So we have these constant phone calls before they close on what the scope is, what's the budget, and they look at my budget, they look at their budget, and it's all this, we've got a plan. And then there's challenges on even me, like, Greg, what are you kidding? That's too much, or is it really a problem or not? And you have to have those open conversations. And you know what turns out happening is we're all friends, we're all family. And I know how they think and they know how I think. And they say, well, Greg Greg, and he's too picky about things. One of the most interesting things since we talked about multifamily, you know where the big risk is in multifamily? Balconies. Balconies, who doesn't love a balcony? I have one, everybody should have one. And that water gets in there, they're tilted the wrong direction. There's structural issues, and then the guy below them, they have problems, and on and on. If you really look at where risk is in multifamily, think about it. It very well could be balconies, and they can cost you millions to fix, depending on the size of the property. So always take a good hard look at what's going on. The railings, they have to be really strong. And so there's a suggestion. When you're doing your due diligence on your potential new project, take a really hard look at every balcony.
So you think that's the reason? I don't know, it just came to my mind. I wanted to
Mhm.
ask you. Because now we go to so many properties, see that, and a lot of times we see that the balcony access is closed. Maybe that could be one of the reasons they have stopped the access to the balconies because they feel like, okay, it's gonna cost more to keep the maintenance going for the balconies. Even hotels too. I've seen multiple hotels. They do not have the access to the balconies anymore.
Yeah.
The balconies are there, but no access. Basically, they just stopped it.
Yeah. I had one guy say, "Are we done yet?" And they flew me up to Detroit and I looked at a property and I said, "No, you're not done." We evaluate where they're at on how things are progressing on their renovation. You've got to wonder if they've locked up the access to the balcony because they thought someone was going to leap over it or something like that. But you're onto something. And that's the key thing, right? Is you're asking the right question. What's going on here? And pursue that, because everybody's going to point over there because it's a rosy picture. But your mind should be, I think I'm going to take a left while you're trying to drive the golf cart to the right to look at a new building or a new something or other. Be inquisitive, be curious, be strong. And it's your money and it's your life. And do you want to really spend 3 or 4 years over where you expected to do something? So take care of yourself and so have a good family life, have a good life, enjoy your renovation after you're done with it. And that should be the goal.
That's true. Yeah, you wanted to have a peace of mind, no matter
Yeah,
what you do, because, and then
right.
you need to have that space for yourself where you are more creative, like innovative, doing things with like
Yeah,
stay involved, but at the same time, not creating a chaos for yourself. Because if you are in a chaotic situation, you're not helping, right? It makes things even worse. We believe building wealth is not just one side of the coin. The other side is protecting it. So I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about that? And if you can share some tips with us, how to avoid the financial leaks, maybe the top 3 tips, especially during the construction, the renovation phase of the project.
Okay, so the best thing is do your immediate needs. Things that are broken, damaged, have to be done within the first 90 to 360 days. And then you should have a CapEx, meaning a plan forward for your hold. Maybe your hold is 5 years, maybe it's your lifetime, but you need a capital expense projection budget. Always have one of, that's going to go. HVAC, it's not going to last for 40 years, right? The roofing. So be sure you account for all those major costs to maintain that asset after you're done. Make sure you've taken care of all the immediate needs before you call it a day. And you should do those in the first 365 days of taking care of the big problems first, and then take really good care of your property going forward and budget for it.
I like that. So I'm curious about one thing, first of all, I'm just like amazed at your experience for the last 40 years you've been doing this. And then wanted to, ask you this, what mindset have you seen in people who make it through renovation setbacks and still come out stronger? Because I kind of been there, done that one time for one of my projects. So it's just like, I could feel like how chaotic was that. And I just wanted to understand from you, what have you seen or in your experience, the people that you have seen who went through this renovation setbacks, and what separates them from those who just like, fold under pressure versus, some they know they can make it through this thing.
I have both types of clients I'm visualizing right now. One of the saddest things that I've heard at the end of a renovation is, you know what? I hate this house. I don't know why we bought this house. And she's so unhappy because she had a vision and it didn't come together. And the contractor didn't execute really well. And then we have just the opposite of someone who had really very integral issues, but they were all fixed and done. And you know what the difference is attitude. And people that are doing the work on your renovation. And They all need to team up. So if the contractor isn't being responsible and responsive, that's going to make for an unhappy client. And if you're doing, let's say, custom home renovation or whatever it may be, do you really want to be that way? So the company needs to be vetted. Make sure you have the right team for you. And then attitude, personal strength, and looking at the reality of what you're taking on. It's very important to say, oh, well, there will be surprises. Renovations can be very, very disturbing in the midst of it. I like your point of crisis and like haywire. So be prepared for that. And you really, if you're not taking that belief into your heart that it's going to have some bad days, then you really shouldn't be doing renovating. You should just buy new, right? You should just turnkey, this is it, and we're done. So attitude is really important, and you should prepare yourself for some tough days if you're going to go into a renovation.
Interesting. I agree with you. Mindset is really, really important in everything, whatever you do, regardless if it's renovation. Because you know what my strategy is, I wanted to share with you how I can get through this kind of things, you know, when it's get chaotic. I don't even let it go to that level, you know, because if I work with somebody, I tell them day one, okay, we are a team together working for the same goal. So I do not give them the kind of employer-employee feeling. So it's just like, they just like be like, okay, this is a chore. I wanted to finish this. I have to report to somebody versus if you bring them as a team, hey, we are a team and this is our goal. We're going to reach there in this budget and this time. A lot of times, I don't know, it worked well for me because otherwise I think I would have just like pulling my hair off all this kind of projects, you know, not my cup of tea, basically.
I think you've had obviously a lot of experience and you've earned your stripes and you've really opened yourself up to, okay, let's try it again. And I'm going to do it better this time. And that's the attitude that I'm talking about is that be real. Don't be like, oh, this is going to be a palace when we're done and it's going to go easy. It's not going to go easy. Weather is a big thing. That can change everything and unforeseen issues and so on and so forth. And you open up a wall and it's termite damage to it, a structural degree. And all these things are reality. And so you need really good due diligence up front and a good attitude from there on.
I know, I think that's the most important thing, the mindset, you know, how you take the information down, how you process it, and how you basically run with that to create something better for you. So I'm going to ask you this question, you know, Greg, if you could go back 30 years into your life, you know, and whisper one piece of advice into your younger self before starting a big project, what would you say?
Wow. Excellent question. Okay. To be an expert, you have to make a lot of mistakes and seen others mistakes done by others and fix them. So what I always do, for example, if you walk around a building or whatever, walk the other way around the building or wherever you are, take more time and be a quick study and let the building talk to you, and it will. And have a strong sense of curiosity of like, hold on, I'm in this stairwell and I smell some smoke. Has there been a fire here in this building? Yes, there has. How did you know that? I mean, that was 5 or 6 years ago. I can smell it. So trust your senses, go extreme curious. I don't need to go in those woods on that property next door, but you know what? I do. And you know what I find? I found this is recently in North Carolina. I went into this woods next door and I found this huge gully in the ground. And it was part of the property I was looking at. Is that there was an extension for a whole new development over there and they didn't do the piping right. And I felt like I was Frank Hardy. I'm not sure the Hardy Boys, I'm sure you didn't read them, but boys do. The point is that you need to enjoy being where you are. Don't be in a hurry and go for a walk. Walk around, walk back around the other way and look for problems and have a strong sense of curiosity. And that's my world. And that's who I am. And it really means a lot to you as the buyer. And it means a lot for me. You can imagine how happy I was when I was Frank Hardy, you know, the young kid that figured out, you know, and solved the problem that no one else could as a detective. So that's me. And I really embrace it. And I cannot wait for the next day to the next morning when I get up and I look at another property, and I have this belief that there's something, a surprise in this property that I want to find that no one knew about, including the owner that's lived there for 40 years or whatever. There is something there you need to find every day.
That's so true. I agree on that 100%. And I love it how you said, let the building talk to you, or
Yeah.
let the building tell you a story, because I think you're so right about that. Because if you are open to receiving, when you walk into any building, like we are in the multifamily space, and also we do multiple other asset classes as well. So when you
Right.
walk into the space, if you are open to receiving, you're going to see so many things, because you're going to be very much vigilant about what's happening around you, and then the space, the building itself, is going to share the story. And how would you define wealth in your life and in your work?
I get paid to eat ice cream. My wealth is the joy that I get up every day and go and look at a building. So in the last 3 days, I think I've been under in three crawl spaces, and I'm looking. I just enjoy finding, looking, and it's. I get phone calls from people and organizations. They say, "Would you be willing to do this? Would you come to New York and take care of this property, project, and evaluate it?" I would pay them to do it. I mean, some of these projects I get to work on, I literally would pay to do them. 70-story high rise in Miami, Cass Gilbert buildings in New York City, with just phenomenal detailing in 1920s, 30s, 40s buildings and so forth. So old or new, 100-year-old. I was in a 100-year-old building last week in Tampa, but just keep challenging me, and I know there's going to be something there that I'm really be inspired to find. And I'm very lucky. So I get paid to work, but it's not work. How about that? That's my
I like
wealth.
that. I like that. I
That's
think
my
you're
wealth.
so right. Because if you love what you do, you never work,
No,
basically. That's
no.
the thing, if you enjoy, and that's the best thing. So this brings us to our rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 5
Okay.
questions. You're going to answer it in one word or one sentence only. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, the first one is a mindset question. What's one mindset shift that created the biggest wealth breakthrough in your life?
Stick with what you know, what you find, and be curious and keep asking for, looking for opportunities, and surround yourself with experts in engineering, in real estate, in all aspects of what it is to be a building, and make them sure that your friends, your buddies, and hang around. And all of a sudden, you'll get leads, you'll get opportunities, and be introduced to really some advantage investments.
Interesting. So first thing you do when you wake up.
Think about what my challenges are today and what's on my schedule, and prepare for it and jump out and go for it. Have a cup of coffee.
One tool or habit that keeps you grounded during the chaotic projects.
Thinking about this is costing money for somebody. It's a lot of times it's not my money, it's my client's money. And so the most keeps me grounded is this good for their budget? Is this good for their progress? Is this good for their goals?
Your go-to comfort food after a long day on site.
Comfort food. Clam chowder and lobster.
One word that describes your wealth vibe right now.
Top. I'm amazed at how well I live at this point in time. Grandfather, father, godfather, and on and on. I'm so lucky to be me, and I really am awed and couldn't believe that this could happen to me.
Wow, Greg, this was incredible. Thank you for sharing the kind wisdom that only comes from a real experience like yours, 40 years. Oh my God. We have learned so much today about how you avoid traps, stay grounded, and protect your wealth from the sneaky little pitfalls most people overlook. So can you tell us, how people can connect with you, or, learn more about you?
Sure. My email address is greg@thecbcteam.com. And hey, give me a call. My phone number is 321-436 8073. And I'd love to hear your ideas or problems, or if you want solutions, let's talk about it. Glad to help.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for being part of our show.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Real Estate Vibe Show. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anyone looking to elevate their real estate investing game. Until next time, stay focused, stay inspired, and keep building your real estate vibe. Thanks again.